Oops. Sorry about that. And we're back. Stage, what are we? Stage 13. Excuse me. And out of the Alps now. Today's kind of going to be the sort of downtime stage. I mean, they're still got a lot of kilometers to cover. But after the Alpe d'Huez, this is almost a letdown stage. But it's going to be a sprint stage almost definitely, although we've got this group of 4 who've gone up the road. A couple of really good breakaway specialists, including the guy I'm drawing right now, Thomas de Gendt. In front of him, flying the colors for BMC, who've just had not the tour they were hoping for. And then next to him, over on this side, the guy I'm starting to draw now is Scully, Tom Scully, EF Education First. Again, they too have lost their team captain. The cumulative effects of Miles and crashing in the Roubaix stage. Whereas Char's leader, Richie Porte, crashed out of that same stage. Hit a fan at the side of the road, and then yesterday, in the wild, crazy crowds of the Alpe d'Huez, a fan's camera strap hooked the handlebars of Vincenzo Nibali, quickly flipping him onto the ground, and came down so hard that he actually fractured a vertebra. He did get back up. There's the first time the camera caught him, other fans are helping him get back up on his bike. And finished the stage, and then found out he had a broken vertebrae. That's just how tough these guys are. Now, one of the things, is there are the TV motos and the race motos and the cops who close the road, but there's also press photographers on the back of a motorcycle riding along, shooting some great shots of the race as well. When I first started this project, I was working with somebody who getting me into being involved with the Giro d'Italia, and actually to be at the races doing this work. And one of the thoughts I had, and this will quickly become as silly as I later realized it was, but that I too would be on the back of a motorcycle doing this exact same thing from the back of a motorcycle. I never even got as far as testing the theory before the race organizers he was working with said, we've had photographers who've been waiting 20 years to get onto a motorcycle, because clearly you can get the best photographs if you're out in the middle of the race. So photographers have been vying for years to get onto one of the motorcycles to follow the race, because obviously there's a whole lot more photographers than there are motorcycles to carry them. Because there have been incidents, yes, there were fans who endanger the racers, but there's also been many times when the motorcycles have been the cause of racers' demise. I feel like, I don't think they've actually killed a racer yet, but it's come close. This is a very dangerous sport. So many different reasons, so many different things can go wrong, and it happens in a blink of an eye. Call this Against Hope. Now it should be an interesting sprint today because 3 or 4 of the marquee sprinters are out of the race due to not making the time limits, the time cuts. Make sure I'm still aligned there. Yep. So now we go to color. Again, always starting with the yellow. Whoops. Also starting with a clean brush. Let me rinse that out. Always forget, because I end with the dark color, to make sure my brush is clean, because the last painting ends with the dark color and the new painting starts with a pale color. Bad combination. Fortunately, I discovered that before I started laying the color onto the page. So laying the flesh tones in next. I also like to do the flesh tones early because it helps me find the figure. Because, clearly these lines can be a little bit confusing. Yes, I do get confused. A lot. We'll move on to red. So Thomas de Ghent has won many stages from breakaways. So having him out here can really make this a very tough group to chase down. But I think the sprinters are going to want to have their day, those that are still here. I believe it's this stage, maybe one more, and then Paris is all they get. So they're going to want to strut their stuff, as it were. So it's interesting, today is the first day that Direct Energy hasn't been in the break. They've made every other break of this tour. And again, that's because they're one of the wild card teams, and it's sort of almost their obligation to enliven the race as a wild card team. But today it's only one of the teams. Cofidis is a wild card, the rest are all World Tour teams. BMC, Lotto Soudal, and Education First. Now this lovely bright pink of Education First. Not only do they have this great pink, but then they have, just to make sure you see them, this contrasting bright green on their kit. And then their socks have been split front and back, bright green and bright pink. I have a feeling if you look down at your feet, you start to get a little nauseous looking at them. All right, so now we'll switch to cool colors. Start with the photographer's vest. They all wear a particular colored vest to let people know that they're an official photographer, that they are in fact allowed to be on course. At the finish line where they all congregate to get those victory salute shots, they're all clumped together and they're all in their press credential vests. So up ahead of the race you always have the lead vehicle, 2 motorcycles, usually police motorcycles. Their function is to the final check to make sure the road is closed. Because it can happen that a car can somehow manage to squeeze by. And I've seen this horrible video once. It was a race in Mexico where they thought they had the road closed and they didn't, or I don't know exactly how it happened, but you see a car plow head on into the peloton. Bikes flying everywhere. Oh, ugh. Every time I think about it, yuck. I don't know if I've said I've had the displeasure of being hit several times by cars. Several. Considerably more than several. I've been hit 10 times. Now, partly because I was a bike courier in D.C. back in the 70s. But also because I had this silly notion that the right-of-way is my right-of-way. And I'll take it. I don't recommend that as a mindset. It does hurt a lot. And in fact, the last time I got hit, put me in the hospital for a number of days. Coincidentally, I was working on the Tour de France. I've published a book of these watercolors of the tour, my writings that are on the blog. So basically it was a published version of the blog with augmentation and more documentation, etc. But anyway. And, sorry, I just kicked the camera. And while I was in the editing process is when I got hit. And it was a crowdfunded book. It was funny, one of the things when you do a crowdfunding is you have to say, well, what can make this get delayed? Getting hit by a car while cycling never quite entered my wheelhouse of what could go wrong. But then again, I'm a big fan of Murphy and the what can go wrong will go wrong mentality. Doesn't stop me from trying. But I did get the book out. Got it out just a week late, the exact amount of time I was in the hospital. And that book still is available through Amazon. Just look for Book to Tour. So getting the last of the background in here. What has been amazing in this tour is it hasn't rained yet. That was one of the things when I was looking at painting watercolors from the back. It wouldn't have worked anyway because that was the Giro d'Italia that year. They actually canceled a day because of snow. It was not... I think there was only 4 or 5 days out of the 21 days where it wasn't raining or snowing. And clearly being on the back of a motorcycle, trying to do watercolors in this rain just clearly wouldn't work. You know, I'd be mixing watercolors. Yeah, no way. So again, we're mixing in my black now for the shorts. Virtually everybody here has got black shorts on except for the Colfidis rider. So again, it's this alizarin crimson purpley color and then this dark green, kind of a hooker's green. Let's see here, start with the BMC kit. The black shorts on Lotto Soudal. Now, one of the wild stories about EF Education First, they've been writing as Cannondale Drapac. And Cannondale and Drapac pulled out as principal sponsors. So the team was looking at folding at the end of last season. And they actually did a crowdfunding drive. Raised a lot of money, because one of the things was, of course, with the team folding, that meant the riders weren't going to get paid. Jonathan Waters, who manages the team, was really upset about that, justifiably, and probably not as upset as the riders were. But the crowdfunding got everybody paid, and the crowdfunding also got Education First convinced that there was enough interest in the sport and the team in particular to justify them putting money into the team. So as a sidebar to that, that first book was also a crowdfunded book. So crowdfunding is a powerful tool if you've been paying attention to politics at all, which I wouldn't fault you if you're not. The artist who did the Baby Trump blimp, that was also a crowdfunded project. I was just reading today that they raised so much more money than they expected to that they're actually making a second blimp, because that blimp was for the European visit for the EU and state visit to the UK. So now they're going to have one for the US, which I'm sure is just going to get under that guy's skin like you wouldn't believe. But I'm not going to talk politics here. So, just about finished here. Again, all these paintings are available for sale. Would love to see them sold. As you can see, I got a big stack of paintings here. And you can figure out that purchasing process by going to the blog, theartofcycling.blogspot.com. I will put that on the description as well. And that will provide you a direct link to my website, which, by the way, is gregleach.com, and that's GREIGLEACH. And they are one-of-a-kind, originals, first come, first serve. I'm not making prints of these things. I got enough of them as it is. So this is the first of today's paintings. With today's stage, I'll probably not do as many as I have done in the mountain stages, or the the Roubaix stage. So there'll probably only be about 4 or 5 of these, 5 or 6, something like that, who knows. All right, there it is. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this. Hope you've learned a little something about the tour, about cycling, and about watercolors. I'll be back again tomorrow.